Hey everybody, welcome back to another Super Sweet Sunday video with Royal Syrup Gamer. Today I'm playing Slay the Spire for PC. It's my first PC game that I've played for pretty much anything, Super Sweet Sunday or otherwise. It's available right now on Steam. It's a beta copy for early access. If you want to get in on that, you can buy it there. It's on sale 20% off right now, so if you want to check it out after you see this, you can do that. It's a deck building, card playing RPG roguelike. So you're going to play cards to attack and defend, and then you're going to kind of die a lot. So anyway, I really enjoy this game a lot. It's probably one of the best games I've played in the last, I would say, 6 to 8 weeks. And so I thought I would definitely want to put this up for you guys this week. If you want to see that how to play for this game, just keep watching after the intro. If you want to see my pros and cons of the game, just skip to about 20 minutes in, and that link is also time-stamped in the description, and you can see some of the pros and cons and what I enjoyed about it, and still get some of the how-to tips. They're a little more advanced at that point. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Slay the Spire for the PC. So you can choose from either the Ironclad or the Silent, and they both play differently. The Ironclad is more like bracing physical and defensive attacks, whereas the other character is more using energy. At the beginning, you can, after you go through the first part of the game, you can choose to do one of the 4 options. They're all slightly different. Each time they could be different. They might not be the same 4 options each time. Here is the map. The small faces are just regular enemies. Then there are large faces, and those are the elite enemies that are much, much harder. Question marks are kind of scenes that you play through, sometimes good, sometimes bad. The bags are merchants, and the boxes are treasure. And you can pick different branching paths to go on. You all start in a room with a regular enemy, like this one. To play, you have a deck of cards. You start off with 11, and you choose attacks and defenses from that hand that you draw of 5. You have 3 energies to use in each play. For example, if you see in the bottom left corner, it says 2 out of 3 right now. And then the top left-hand corner of each card has a number. That's how many energy points it takes to play. So the bash takes 2 of my 3 energy points, where defend and strike only take 1. Some techniques are attacks. Attacks deal damage. Skills do different things, include block. There are also other buffs and debuffs that you can get from skills and attacks. At this case, the strikes are just regular damage, and the defense are regular blocks. After you win, you get to pick up gold, potions sometimes, and a card to add to your deck that do different things. It's really important to pick things that you will use for your deck. I just picked Flex because it will add to strength for a short amount of time, and strength increases the amount that you can attack by. So instead of my strike being worth 6, it's worth 8 now. The enemies in this game do debuff quite a bit and buff. He just did a buff that allows him to increase strength. I chose to block because his intentions, which are listed above his head, say 6 attack. Now, since he has a strength up by 3, it's a 9 attack. I continued to block and then use my strike. After your deck gets run through, it gets shuffled and played in front of you again, and you just keep recycling the same deck of cards. This time I chose to be more offensive, and so he's going to attack and hit me for 7. I'm not a big fan of the card Bash, but it does allow you to create vulnerabilities in your opponent, which increases your attack, or decreases their defense, rather. These cards, I didn't want any of them, but I realized that the Perfected Strike is any strike card in your deck and not just the ones that are in your hand. So my first branch, I decided to go to an unknown, and the scene plays, and it tells you what you can do, pray or leave. And so I transformed a card. Since I don't like Bash, I picked that, and I got a really good card out of it, which was Whirlwind, which does 5 damage to each enemy, depending on how many energies you have left. So if you have 3 energy, it'll do 5 each. 5 damage to each energy each time you play it. It consumes all the energy you have. So the order of the cards is important. I played Flex there first because if I played Strike, it would have rolled up into a ball, and I might not have been able to kill it because it would have a block on. But I played the flex first to increase my strength so that the strike would kill it. So here I'm throwing a potion to take 10 out so that I can use Whirlwind to kill the slime and also severely damage the slaver. I do have to take damage in this case, but it's good to get one enemy out of the way. As you can see, Perfected Strike is pretty good, especially early in the game when you have a lot of strike cards. Here I'm picking up a regen potion, which allows you to restore HP at the end of each turn. I wasn't particularly fond of any of these cards, and if you don't want to pick one up, then you can click skip and you don't have to pick anything up. You can do that with potions as well. If you have 3 potions, then you can do that. So at the campsite, you can either rest for 25% of your HP gain, or you can upgrade cards. You can upgrade up to 1 card and make it better. So I upgraded Whirlwind so that it did 8 damage to each of the opponents instead. Here's the Merchant. The Merchant has cards for sale. You win gold from enemies, and he usually has pretty good sales. Here's an elite regular enemy, meaning that he's going to be tough to kill. Sometimes most of the time these enemies have really strong attacks and really good buffs, and that's why they're so difficult. So it's best to take them out as quickly as you can. This one, anytime you use a skill, he gains strength, which makes his attacks a lot stronger, so you kind of just have to kill him as fast as you can and just let him hit you because you can't block. If you block, it's a skill, and his strength will grow, which will allow him to get 3 extra damage off of you each time he hits you. So even though here he has a 21, I chose not to use any defense because it would go up to 24 and then 27. I used a block potion to get rid of some of that damage and cut it down to 9. As you can see, whatever he is going to damage you with, 21, minus your block is the amount of damage you take. And it's also true the other way when the enemy chooses to guard. Block always goes away at the end of the turn unless there's an ability that allows you to keep your block, which I will show you later. Picked up a blood vial. Every elite enemy drops relics. They're minor relics usually. And the blood vial allows you to get 2 HP back at the beginning of every combat. That was a treasure room, and I picked up a stone that allowed me to gain 1 dexterity, meaning that all of my block cards allowed me to get 1 more block. This is actually a very tough enemy because it has very high attack rates. Just try to do your best to defend against it and attack when you can, or if you want to just go all out and lose some HP as you go on. Sometimes these elite enemies can be strong enough to kill you. In fact, there are a couple of times where I think that I have died from elite enemies, and even the minor enemies can kill you because you don't regain HP after each battle. You have to choose to regain it at a rest stop. Sometimes you can regain HP during an event as well. I think later in the video I have a chance to do that. I really like Iron Wave because it allows you to block and do a small amount of damage. But I chose, because the enemy is debuffing me, I chose to use attacks only. What they did there is lower my strength to a -1 so I can't attack as well. Again, in this case I chose Iron Wave to start because I wanted to get at least a little bit of a block on because he was doing 18 damage to me. I chose to go with a full-out attack again because it was a debuff, and then 6 times 3 is 18, which is enough to destroy him. Again, you get a relic each time. This time I got a lantern, which allowed me to have 4 energies to start combat, only in the first turn. I chose Headbutt here because it's a card that allows you to get a card out of your discard pile, meaning that when you play it, anything that you've already played can go back on top of your deck. So if you played something really strong, you're allowed to put that on top of your deck and get it again in your next hand. Again, I planned out my route so that I wouldn't have to face much at the end. I faced most of my difficult things in the beginning. So I upgraded Searing Blow so that I could get 16 because you can upgrade that card as many times as you want for 4 extra damage each time you upgrade. So as you can see, as I've gone throughout the game, my deck has changed from a lot of just plain strikes and defense to a lot of different cards. So this time I think I picked Cleave because it does 7 damage to all enemies, so when you get into larger enemy groups you can wear them down easier. I started playing this game because it was recommended by a friend because I really like the card game Dominion. And it's kind of like Dominion because you have to build a deck, but it also has like this roguelike RPG element to it because you can't really win this game. So you just keep climbing this tower and eventually you're going to die. It's kind of like also Binding of Isaac. If you've played Binding of Isaac, then you know that you gain a lot of different weird powers, and you might not see the same power twice in 20, 30 playthroughs. You might get a power you're like, man, that power was so good, and then you don't see it again for the next 5 to 10 hours you play the game. This is kind of the same way with relics. There are so many different relics that you might not see the same relic more than one time or 2 times if you play it for 2 or 3 hours. You always start with the Burning Flame relic, but after you defeat the first boss for the first time, the second playthrough, you're allowed to trade that relic for a different relic. You always get the option to rest before the boss of the level. The boss of the level is a very difficult boss. If you know how to beat the first boss, usually it's not too bad if you have full HP, but the second level boss is very, very tough. I've only defeated it 1 time in 6 tries, so it's extremely difficult. The slime is actually not very strong, but it breaks into more slimes every time you have its HP. So, in essence, you really have to beat 7 slimes in order to defeat it. It has a lot of buffs, but its attacks are not super strong. So, a lot of times you can guard with low numbered defenses and still be okay. This is the only attack that I've seen where it really does a lot of damage. And I just absorbed that damage because the one time you do get your HP repaired completely is after you defeat a level boss. A few other things I really like about this game: it's very clear and easy to learn. The first time you go through it, maybe you don't get very far, or maybe you don't even beat the first boss, but you can see kind of how the game works. It's really quick to drag the cards around. The only time that I really feel it's slow is when I'm waiting on the enemy to act, because sometimes the animations take a little bit of time. It's not a really big deal, but maybe after this gets through beta, they'll be able to turn those animations off in an option. There's where the slime split. Whatever the HP the large slime has, that's what it splits into with the small slime. So you want to try to get as many HP taken out of it when you know you're going to have it. So there's a lot of strategic planning in this game where you have to think about what you want to do now and maybe what you want to do in the next turn. So here I just focused on getting that front slime down below 20 as far as I could and just letting the back slime do its thing. Well, I did double tap first, right? And then I did that. So that would be 24 damage to each one. So I gained 6 more damage on the back. Double tap allows the next card to be played to be used twice with only the energy cost being used once. So that's the headbutt card where you can put a card back in on top of your deck. So I knew on the next turn I wanted to finish it all off because I couldn't do it this turn. And so I put the Searing Blow on top because it automatically takes 16 out, so I knew I'd be able to take out the higher HP of the slime, and I just needed one other attack then. So I took the Barricade from here, which is a power that you can play hopefully early in your hand where a block no longer expires at the start of your turn. Whatever block you accrue is always there. Fiend Fire is also a good card, and so is Bludgeon. Bludgeon allows you to get a very large attack, up to 40, 50 possibly, on any one enemy, but it uses probably all of your energy. These relics are boss relics, which mean they're a lot better. I chose the Lizard Tail, which means when I die, I get to get half my health back. My favorite one I've found so far has been one that allows you to get 2 energy at the beginning of every turn, but there was some caveat with it as well. I don't remember exactly what it was. Maybe max HP went down. There was another one that allowed you to keep cards and not discard, but you had to only draw 4 each time instead of 5. The thieves here are one of my least favorite enemies because they are very strong and they run away, so you really have to kill them quickly, and they will take a lot of HP quickly. The second level is way more brutal than the first level. The first level I can get through most of the fights without really dying very much, losing HP. Usually I lose 20 or 30 before I get to the boss, and then I can rest and I have full HP heading into the boss, and that's not the case with the second level. In this playthrough I went for a lot of monster elites, which means that I tried to face tougher enemies, and so I didn't get as far as I probably thought I would. But I wanted to get those relics and see what some of the other relics are. And to get more relics, you have to either buy them from the merchant or fight elites. This time, I went through a tomb and I wanted to receive a relic. That Writhe is a curse that is unplayable in your hand, so if you draw it, you can't use it. And it's very annoying. You can get it taken out of your hand for 75 gold from the merchant. And then here, instead of healing 26, which would have taken me to full HP, I decided to add a card to my deck. And the cards are just your basic 20 cards. You can just pick one. That Seeing Red card in the middle is pretty good. You gain 2 energy on any one turn, so if you have that drawn with a lot of high energy cards, it really allows you to do a lot better. I took Armaments. I meant to upgrade it and never got around to it because the upgraded Armaments card, if you play it, upgrades every card for the rest of battle, and it's very strong. So if you can get Armaments early in a game, upgrade it at a rest area, that's what you should do because it's a very, very effective card. It's basically a block that allows every other card to be upgraded once for the duration of the battle. So these are Beards, B-Y-R-D-S, and they are flying creatures. You have to attack them 3 times to get them to not be flying, and then they lose a lot of their powers. I recently got that relic, and I got the little shards. And the shards allow you to, every time you get attacked, it deals 3 damage back to the opponent. And so I really like that one because especially with these Beards, they can be really, really annoying. But every time they attack you, they do 1 damage 5 times. And so they take 15 damage when they attack you. So you could really clean up these birds really fast, and that's really cool. Like that one died, I took 10 damage from it, but it died because it gave me 10 damage. So I didn't even have to fight it. Again, double tap is great, used it in conjunction with Whirlwind, and that took care of the bird. Double tap and Whirlwind, double tap and Cleave, and double tap and Twin Strike are all very effective uses together. I've just used double tap for the first time in this specific playthrough, and I really liked it a lot. Anger is also a good card because it's energyless, meaning when you come up into your hand, you can play it for free and it just does damage. And then that one creates a copy. The only problem is you might get too many copies in your pile, and then eventually you just start getting a lot of anger cards. So this is the first elite enemy that I faced in the second round, and it has a lot of minions that do quite a bit of damage, and the main goblin leader does a lot of damage as well. So it's really tough when you face this guy because even if you do a lot of blocking, he's going to do 20 damage each time, and unless you have a lot of blocking cards or a lot of combo cards that allow you to block, you really can't do much against him. So he calls forth different minions, and they all have different buffs and debuffs and attacks, and some of them, when you attack them, they get more strength, and some of them, when you attack them, they do things to you. So you just have to be careful to attack them as necessary and not spend too much time attacking the minions. If you do destroy the leader, the minions will automatically leave. So if you can kill the main leader, then you should. When that main leader has the question marks above its head, usually that means it's going to call more minions. I'm getting really low on HP, but I did pick that Lizard's Tail earlier from the boss. So once I die, I'll be able to regain 50% of my HP. Luckily, I don't have to worry about it here because I have the double tap with the Perfected Strike that allows me to get 36, and so I killed him. A lot of times you think you're going to die in this game. Whetstone's really good. You get to upgrade to automatic attack cards very quickly, so that's a good one. I didn't get the ones I wanted, but it's a good one to get. It only works once, but anytime you can upgrade for free, it's good. I'd never seen this one before. This is like a weird ghost hand with a knife. I don't know, coming out of a book. I think it's called the Book of Stabbing, which is a pretty funny name. A lot of the enemies are creative without being like out of the world. Like the Book of Stabbing is clearly like a very esoteric enemy, but like they have the birds, but they spell birds differently and they kind of look strange. Or they have like the mushrooms that kind of have arms as well. So they do a good job of like varying the enemies up. As I was saying earlier, I think that it really is tough for you to know whether or not you're going to die against a specific enemy. Like sometimes you get really close to dying and you win, and sometimes you think you're going to win and then all of a sudden the enemy does like attack you didn't know it had for 31. The more times you play this game, this is what makes it kind of like a roguelike. The more times you play the game, it really lets you know like, hey, I remember this enemy, they do this debuff and they do this, so I have to make sure to have this, this, and this don't play these cards because it doesn't work as well, etc. And the more you play, you'll get a play style where you kind of know what is good for your play style. For me, I like to use stuff that is combo block cards with attacks or that double my energy. I like to have a lot of energy. I'm going to try to play with the other character a little bit more because she allows you to have a lot of extra energy cards or trade an energy this turn for 2 next turn, stuff like that. So this is what I'm talking about. I had no idea that this boss, or this elite enemy rather, had an attack that does 30. That's tons of damage, and so I just loaded up as much as I could. Luckily when it attacks, it's going to do 9 damage, so there's nothing I can really do, but it will take a little bit of damage because I block and I have that shards, and so it took 15 damage. It did 9 to me, so it was actually good for me. The wounds keep getting recycled through my deck because that's like the Book of Stabbings thing it does, is it gives you wounds into your deck. The anchor was really good. I had never seen it before. It starts every battle with 10 block, and if you have the barricade, which I do, and I don't know if I ever used it together correctly, but if you have the barricade with that anchor, then you can play the barricade the first turn and you'll already have a block set for the second turn. This is a tough regular enemy combo because the slaver has high attacks and the little plated guy, he's tough to beat, and he doesn't have strong attacks, but he just gets a lot of block every turn. He starts with 14, and every time you take damage, the amount of armor he has goes down, but that means you have to keep at him a long time, and it's a tough battle. The Shelled Parasite is his name, and even if you just hit it by itself without the slaver, it can still be a tough task to defeat. My main goal in this match is to defeat the slaver first because it doesn't have any block on it, and it does do damages and debuffs. As you can see here, it's going to do 8 damage. Luckily I had that lizard's tail, and it made me vulnerable, and so that lizard's tail got used up, and the vulnerability makes your attacks weaker, or vulnerable makes their attack stronger. Weakness makes your attacks weaker, and so I was a little bit nervous about that. It's going to do 18 damage. I just healed back up. That's tough, to take that damage so quickly. So earlier I talked about as you go forward, it's kind of like a roguelike, and your character gets better and better. It doesn't necessarily get better it does get better the first time you play the game because you can get an extra power at the beginning from the giant whale. But the second and third time you go through the game, you might not get any extra benefits from playing through the game because nothing else gets unlocked. But after you get 1,000 points, and you'll see after I die what I'm talking about with points, it unlocks extra cards like the Heavy Blade, and there's a couple others that aren't in the original set of cards. Then, after you go through the game a few more times, it unlocks some extra powerful relics that aren't through the game. So the more times you play through the game, the more stuff that gets unlocked that allows you to get farther in the game. The unlockables, in this case, the relics and the cards, are different for each character because the character cards for the Ironclad are completely different than the character cards for the other character. There will be a third character, it looks like, in the final game. I don't know how many levels there are or how many enemies there are in this game because it's still in beta, and believe me, this game is very, very hard. I've played through maybe 7 or 8 times, and I think I've died against like the most random enemies. Like there's this plant that just does like 12 attack each time. I didn't have a very good amount of defense cards, and I died against this plant. I've died against those thieves before. I've died against that slaver parasite combo. I did a really bad job the one time I did play with the other character, and I died against that big crab, like the thing that was like a hermit crab from the first level. I died against that. So most of the time you die against either elite monsters or bosses, but you can see by playing this game that some of these enemies are like really hard, and they're just basic enemies. One of the things that is really frustrating, or could be good about this enemy, is that it makes you confused, and so the energy cost on the cards is random. So sometimes you'll get a really good card, like Barricade or Bludgeon, that becomes a 0 energy cost, which is awesome. And you can do these awesome attacks and awesome defenses for basically no cost at all. And then sometimes it's like, oh, this is really bad, my basic strike is 3 energies. This time I got a 0 and a 1, which were normal, but then like all those other cards were 1 each normally, and I can only play 1 of them instead of more than 1. The Angry is usually a free card that I could have played, and it came up as a 3. So I got a relic by paying some gold here. If I play a power, a random card in my hand is 0. I did get to use that against the boss up here. So I had so much gold here, I didn't know what to spend it on. Spent a long time looking at all the cards. There's always a card that's on sale for really cheap. I don't really like that Combust because I don't like losing HP. There is another card that if you lose HP, you also get 3 damage to every enemy, which if you use Combust with it could be really good. I ended up getting Toolbox because you can get these random colorless cards, and some of the colorless cards are really awesome. The Deep Breath and the Master Strategy in the bottom left corner are both colorless cards, but I didn't want either of those. So there's that Barricade card I was telling you about. I played it first because it's a power card, and I just picked up that box. Anytime you play a power card, something becomes 0 energy, which was that strike. So it's like a free play. Then I had to decide what else to do. I should have played the Rage before the strike to get the extra block because my block doesn't go away. But I played that out of order incorrectly. And I'm playing Purity and got rid of that Whirlwind because I thought it was going to be a one-on-one fight, but he calls minions. And so I should have really kept that Whirlwind in play, and that was a mistake just because next time I fight this guy, I'll know to keep Whirlwind in play if I have it. But this time I thought it was one-on-one, and it was just a mistake that I made that I wish I wouldn't have made. Also, I should have played Inflame here. Oh, I did play it. There's another time where I didn't play Inflame where I should have, and it cost me a few HP worth of damage. So you can see here I have full HP, but I have 16 block on, and they're still going to hit me for 22 damage. I think that's what it ends up being. 14 damage. And I played that turn, like, I couldn't have asked for a better set of cards, and sometimes these enemies are just, like, tough. They are going to kick your ass. And that's just this game. You should expect to die, and it's okay. And you learn the enemy's tactics, you learn what kind of cards work for you, and you get better at it. A lot of times, you think about a game, and it's like, why do I play this game? Why do I keep coming back to this game? Do I keep coming back to this game? So I just did a review of another game, and I said, you know, the reason why I didn't like the game as much as some other people is because I didn't feel drawn back to play it. Like, I wasn't, like, thinking about it when I was doing other things. I said, well, that game is there for whenever I want to play it. But this game, ever since I played it earlier this week, I've been completely obsessed. I wanted to go back and play it. I've been trying to look for 40 minutes here and there to play it. I just had a really busy week. That was really bad. Frail allows you not to block as well, and it weakened my attacks by 25%, and it makes me more vulnerable, which means their attacks are better as well, so that was a very bad thing for me, but I just kept trying to come back to find this game, and then I didn't know what game I was going to do today for Super Sweet Sunday, and I said, well, I've just been really wanting to play this game. Maybe I should just talk about this game and how good it is. And it's still in beta, which means, like, it's going to be, hopefully, just awesome when it comes out. Of course, it probably needs a little bit of balancing. It probably needs... I think maybe the regular defend card should be a little bit more block if people want to get a little bit farther in game. But I don't know how much other things get unlocked later in the game, what the other unlockables are yet. I've played through 7 or 8 times, and I've only done the first 2 sets of unlockables. It takes a little bit of time to unlock everything in the game for a character. Maybe, depending on if the amount of points for the unlockables go up. If it stays the same, it probably takes you 4 playthroughs to get 1 set unlocked. So that means you're going to probably play 24 hours of this game until you get everything unlocked for the character. And that's fine with me because I think playing through this game, even though you face a lot of the same enemies, the way you use your cards and the way you decide to build your deck is differently every time. This is the first time I used Searing Blow and Perfected Strike in a deck, and it was really interesting because they both cost 2, and I don't like the 2-cost cards because it kind of bottlenecks you into using a specific strategy. I probably would not play Searing Blow again, but I did like the Perfected Strike card, and I would play it again. So at this point, I knew I was going to die. It was just a matter of time. I just tried to put as much defense on my guy as I could, but there really wasn't anything I could do at this point. I knew I was going to die eventually because of his minions, and I think he calls his minions in here in 1 or 2 more turns. I think he attacks me here, which I block, and then the next turn he calls the minions, and then I die. But I knew I was going to die. I didn't have any potions. My cards, I didn't have bludgeon or anything that would allow me to get through everything, so I just kind of knew what was coming. It looks like I get through this turn as well. But I learned from this. I learned that Whirlwind's a good card. Sometimes you realize, like, oh, I built my deck too attack heavy. I built my deck too block heavy. This time I built my deck well. I just made a bad decision about fighting 2 elite enemies in 3 turns. You know, I was kind of down there, and then I had to just rest a lot instead of doing a bunch of events. So I think getting to the second boss, though, is pretty much kind of where you would want to be each time. That seems like about the right place, is to getting to the second boss. So if you play the game, 5 or 6 times, I think the first 6 times I played the game, this was, I believe, my 7th playthrough. The first 6 times I played the game, I got to the second boss, died against an elite monster in the second, died against a regular monster in the second, got to the second boss, got to the 3rd level, which makes the second level look like a joke by comparison. I died real quick in that one. And then here's my 7th playthrough where I got to the second boss. So if you're getting to the second boss, you're probably doing about what you should be doing in the game. I don't know if maybe they make the second boss so difficult because, it's a beta game, and so they don't know how many stages there's going to be. I don't know. I'm on the 33rd floor according to this right now. If you look at the top and the middle, there I go. I'm dead now. And I don't know if there are 100 floors or what, because it doesn't really say. So after you die, it brings up this little table, and it tells you how many points you get, and it takes 1,000 points to unlock. So I got 303 for that playthrough. So you need about 3 1/3 playthroughs to unlock. Thanks again for watching. Here's a link to last week's Super Sweet Sunday video, and if you want to subscribe, click my face. Thanks again for watching, and see you next week for another Super Sweet Sunday with Royal Syrup Gamer.